It was the third night after Daniel left for Chicago when I realized I could finally breathe again. Not because I wanted him gone, but because silence in our house had become rare, almost luxurious. When he was home, his phone never stopped vibrating, and he always answered it in the hallway, voice lowered, promises spilling like static. He said he was just busy, that the company was expanding, that the meetings never ended. I believed him, because that's what wives do when love starts to ache. We believe out of habit. The first 2 days of his trip were ordinary. Good morning texts, photos of hotel coffee, little heart emojis. On the third day, nothing. I told myself the meetings were running long. Still, I kept checking my phone until the battery died. Friday night, he walked through the door exactly at 9. I heard his suitcase wheels bump up the steps, the familiar sound that used to make me happy. But when he hugged me, something felt staged. His arms held me, but his body was distant, like he was rehearsing affection. "You smell like rain," I said, trying to break the awkward quiet. "Chicago weather," he answered, smiling too quickly. He went straight to the shower. 10 minutes later, I walked past the bathroom and saw the fogged mirror, steam rolling under the door, and then his silhouette, half-turned. There was dark ink on the side of his chest, running down toward his ribs. At first, I thought it was a bruise. Then I saw letters. He closed the door before I could say anything. When he came out, wrapped in a towel, I pointed. "What's that?" He looked down as if he'd forgotten it existed. "Oh, this?" "Just something stupid. The guys dared me. The guys dared you to get someone's name tattooed on you?" His mouth twitched. "It's not what it looks like." I stepped closer. The letters were still red at the edges, fresh. "Clara." 5 letters, clean script. I could almost hear my own pulse. "Who is Clara?" I asked. He laughed, a small, unsteady sound. "It's a joke, a fake name. The tattoo artist's girlfriend. I lost a bet." "You lost a bet," I repeated. "And the prize was permanent ink of a stranger's name on your skin." "Baby, it's not that serious." But it was. I could smell it, the kind of lie that sweats through the truth. He pulled a t-shirt over it and kissed my forehead. "You're overthinking again." "Don't make it a thing." That night I couldn't sleep. Every time he turned, the sheet brushed against the spot where her name hid beneath cotton. I stared at the ceiling and thought about all the nights he'd said he was working late. Saturday morning he made pancakes, humming like nothing happened. I watched him from across the kitchen island. His left hand shook when he flipped the pan. "Do you want to tell me the truth now?" I asked quietly. He froze, spatula midair. "About what?" "About Clara." He sighed. "You're not going to drop it, are you?" "Not until you tell me who she is." "She's nobody, Maya." "Then why does her name live on your body?" He set the spatula down slowly. "You wouldn't understand." "Make me understand." His eyes lifted to mine, and for a second I saw fear, raw and quick, before he blinked it away. "I can't," he said, and walked out of the kitchen. The door to his office clicked shut. A moment later I heard the lock turn. I stood there, hands trembling, pancakes burning behind me. The smell of burnt batter dragged me back to the present. I turned off the stove and stared at the black circles in the pan. Smoke curled lazily toward the ceiling like a quiet accusation. He was still in his office. I could hear the faint hum of the computer and the rhythmic clicking of his mouse. Normal noises. Too normal. I cleaned the counter, washed the dishes, and waited. When he finally came out, he looked surprised that I was still there, as if he'd expected me to storm off. "Sorry," he said lightly. "Conference call." He poured coffee and didn't meet my eyes. "I'm going to the market," I told him. "Need me to come?" "No," I said, already reaching for my keys. In the car, the silence hit me again. That's when I opened our shared bank app. He'd once told me the password would never change. Transparency builds trust. But trust had already cracked, and I wanted to see what leaked through. There it was. A hotel charge in Chicago. Not the one the company booked for him, but a smaller one, charged the night before he flew back. And another charge at a tattoo studio. The studio's name was Clara Inc. My stomach twisted. Maybe that was it. Maybe Clara wasn't a woman, but a brand. Maybe I'd built a tragedy out of typography. But then why hide it? Why say, "You wouldn't understand"? I drove to the grocery store anyway, walked the aisles without seeing what I put in the cart. My phone buzzed once. A message from him. "Sorry for earlier. I'll explain tonight." I didn't reply. When I came home, he was gone. His laptop was missing, his office chair pushed back. On the counter lay a note in his handwriting. "Emergency meeting. Back late. Don't wait up. -D." I laughed under my breath. Emergency meeting. The oldest cover in the book. That night, sleep didn't come. I opened my phone and searched Clara Inc. Chicago. It was a small, high-end tattoo studio in the West Loop. Their Instagram page had photos of delicate script tattoos, all captioned by the artist, Clara Jansen. She existed. A woman. Blonde, young. A dozen pictures of her smiling with clients. The same looping signature style on every design. I scrolled further down until I saw a photo posted 2 days ago. Another heartfelt piece for a brave soul. Meaning behind this one stays private. The tattoo in the picture wasn't Daniel's, but the handwriting matched exactly. I zoomed in on the comments. One caught my eye. At Dan_J82. Thank you for helping me remember. The profile picture, a blurred skyline, but the username, Daniel J. His middle name was James. My hands went cold. Remember what? I whispered to the empty room. Morning came gray and dull. Daniel still hadn't come home. His phone went straight to voicemail. By noon, my panic hardened into purpose. I packed a small bag, got in the car, and drove toward Chicago. If there was an explanation, I'd find it myself. The drive took 4 hours, long enough for every version of the truth to play out in my mind. He'd cheated, and the tattoo was her name. He'd lost a bet and lied to avoid the fight, or something else entirely. Something worse. When I reached the studio, a bell chimed softly as I entered. The smell of ink and disinfectant hung in the air. Behind the counter, a woman looked up. Bright hair, easy smile. "Hi there," she said. "Do you have an appointment?" "No," I said. "I'm looking for someone who was here last week." A man, dark hair, around 40, maybe 6 foot. He got a name tattooed on his chest. "Clara." She blinked. "That's funny." "You're not the first person to ask about him." "What do you mean?" She glanced toward a door marked Studio 2. "Wait here." A few minutes later, she returned, a little paler. "I can't give out client info," she said, "but he left something." We mailed it, but it got returned. She reached under the counter and handed me a small padded envelope. Maybe you can get it to him. The envelope had Daniel's name and our old address, written in neat handwriting. The return address was the studios. Inside was a folded receipt and a business card. But there was also a photo. I pulled it out carefully. It showed Daniel sitting in the tattoo chair, shirt off, smiling. Next to him stood Clara, the artist, her arm around him. On the wall behind them was a framed black and white picture of a little girl holding a balloon. I looked closer. The girl had Daniel's eyes. My breath caught. There was handwriting on the back of the photo. For her memory. Thank you for being brave enough to keep her name alive. Her name. Her memory. I felt the room tilt. Who is the girl in that picture? I asked. Clara looked at me cautiously. A client's daughter. He said she passed away a long time ago. My throat tightened. Did he tell you her name? Yes, she said softly. Clara. The world went quiet, like the air had left it. I thanked her, stumbled outside, and sat on the curb. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the photo. If that was true, the name on his skin wasn't another woman's. It was his daughter's. But Daniel had never told me he had a child. Not once. The questions crashed in all at once. Why had he hidden her? Why tattoo her name now, after all these years? And why was he acting like it was something I wouldn't understand? I looked back through the glass door of the studio. Clara was watching me, concern etched on her face. She came outside and knelt beside me. He said he'd finally tell his wife, she whispered, that he was tired of pretending he didn't have a past. I nodded numbly, tears spilling before I could stop them. Do you know where he went after he left here? I asked. She hesitated. He said he was visiting her grave. Where? She looked down. St. Mary's Cemetery, 2 miles from here. I drove there without thinking. The sky had turned the color of lead. Wind whipped through the trees as I walked between rows of headstones. I found it after 20 minutes, a small stone near the back, half covered in leaves. Clara James Reed, born 2016, died 2018. Forever our sunshine. I knelt. My hand touched the cold marble. A single rose lay across it, still fresh. Behind me, footsteps crunched on gravel. I turned. Daniel stood there, rain in his hair, his eyes red. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then he said quietly, "You weren't supposed to find out like this. You weren't supposed to find out like this," Daniel said again, his voice barely above the wind. The cemetery was almost empty, only the rustle of trees and the sound of rain on marble. His eyes darted from me to the headstone and back. I stood slowly. Then how was I supposed to find out, Daniel? When you decided it was convenient? Or when I saw another woman's name carved into your skin and assumed the worst? He ran a hand through his hair, rain dripping down his sleeve. I was going to tell you. I swear I was. I laughed, short, sharp, bitter. Tell me what? That you have a dead daughter I never knew existed. He flinched. Don't say it like that. How else should I say it? My voice cracked. We've been married for 7 years, Daniel. 7. And you never thought to mention you had a child? He stepped closer, but I moved back. Maya, please. It's not what you think. Then explain it to me. Because right now, it looks like my husband has an entire life he buried along with her. He exhaled slowly, eyes clouded with something I couldn't read. Guilt, maybe, or shame. Her mother and I, it was before you. We weren't together long. She got pregnant and we decided to keep the baby. But she was born sick, Maya. Her heart. The doctor said surgery could help, but she was too small. He paused, swallowed hard. She died 2 days after her second birthday. And when it happened, I broke. I couldn't look at her pictures, couldn't hear her name. I shut everything out, including her mother. The words landed heavy in the damp air. You erased her. I whispered. I tried to move forward. He said, I met you. And for the first time, I felt like I could breathe again. I told myself she'd want me to live. But every time I looked at you, every time I thought about having a family, I felt like I was betraying her memory. So I just didn't talk about it. I wanted to believe him. Part of me already did. But anger kept me upright. You could have told me, Daniel. I would have understood. He shook his head. No, you wouldn't have. You would have looked at me like I was broken. I already look at you like you're a stranger. He flinched again. The wind carried the faint scent of wet soil. I stared at the headstone, at the tiny carved heart below her name. Why the tattoo now? His jaw tightened. Her mother called me last month. She said it was Clara's birthday. She found a drawing our daughter made before she died. Her name in crooked letters, with a sun above it. I realized I didn't even have anything of her on me. Nothing. So I went to Chicago, to the artist who shares her name. I thought it was a sign. So you went behind my back? I didn't go behind your back, he said softly. I just couldn't bring myself to tell you until I was ready. And were you planning to be ready before or after I saw her name on your body? He didn't answer. Lightning flashed somewhere far off, a low rumble following. We stood there, two soaked silhouettes among hundreds of silent stones. Finally he said, I'm sorry. The words sounded small, too small for what he'd hidden. I need time, I said, turning away. Maya, don't! I snapped, holding up a hand. Don't follow me right now. I walked back to the car, my shoes sinking into wet grass. Behind me, I heard him call my name once, then stop. The drive home blurred into gray streaks of rain and reflection. By the time I reached the house, the sky had darkened completely. I left the lights off and sat at the kitchen table staring at the photo from the tattoo studio. Daniel's smile in it looked different now. Not guilty, just haunted. I thought of the little grave, the carved heart, the single rose. I should have felt compassion, but instead I felt a storm of mixed things. Sorrow, betrayal, disbelief. Mostly disbelief that someone could love me that deeply and still keep something so huge buried under silence. When the key turned in the lock around midnight, I didn't move. He came in quietly, his clothes still damp. You left me standing there, he said. You left me in the dark for 7 years. He nodded, defeated. Fair. I motioned toward the envelope on the table, the photo, the receipt, the business card. That's everything I found. No more secrets, Daniel. I can't live like that again. There aren't any more, he said quickly. Don't promise that unless you're sure. He looked me in the eye. I'm sure. Then tell me about her mother. He hesitated. Rachel. We met in college. She wanted to travel. I wanted to build a career. We weren't even together when she told me about the pregnancy. I tried to do right by her, but I was scared. I worked 2 jobs. Then Clara was born early, and everything else stopped mattering. He sat down opposite me, elbows on knees, staring at his hands. When she died, Rachel blamed me. Said if I'd made more money, maybe we could have afforded better care. I couldn't stand hearing that. So I left. Changed cities. Changed everything. And when I met you, I thought maybe I could start over. And you did, I said coldly, by pretending she never existed. I thought if I said her name, I'd fall apart. Then maybe you should have let me catch you, I whispered. He looked up, eyes wet. You're right. The clock on the wall ticked between us. Finally, he said, Do you want me to go? I thought about it. About the 7 years of love, the laughter, the shared mornings. About the ache of his silence. No, I said finally. But I need space. I can stay at a hotel. Good. He nodded slowly, stood, and went upstairs to pack a bag. I listened to the footsteps, the zip of the suitcase, the pause at our bedroom door. When he left, he didn't say goodbye. That night, I dreamed of a little girl with Daniel's eyes, drawing suns on paper that crumbled into ash. In the morning, the house was too quiet. His toothbrush was gone. I walked into the living room and found a small box on the couch, his wedding ring, and a folded note. If you want to know everything, look inside my desk drawer, bottom one. My pulse quickened. I went to his office. The drawer slid open easily. Inside were files, old photographs, and one sealed envelope marked Clara. Personal. I hesitated, then opened it. Inside was a birth certificate, hospital documents, and a faded letter. The handwriting wasn't Daniel's. Daniel, if you ever read this, I hope you've forgiven yourself. I couldn't. I couldn't watch you drown in guilt while I stayed angry. You loved her more than I did. You were there every night, holding her hand when I couldn't. If you've moved on, I hope you found peace. I never did. R. Tears blurred the ink as I finished. Below the letter was a small photo. A baby girl with dark curls, laughing, reaching for the camera. I pressed the picture to my chest and sobbed until the sound broke into silence. Then my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. I think we should talk. It's about Daniel. No name, no context. My heart raced. I typed back, Who is this? 3 dots appeared, then vanished. Then another message. You don't know me, but I knew your husband before you did. And I know what really happened to his daughter. You don't know me, but I knew your husband before you did. And I know what really happened to his daughter. The words burned on the screen. For a moment, I thought it was a prank, or maybe someone from Daniel's past trying to stir pain for fun. But then another message appeared before I could type back. Meet me tomorrow, 11 a.m., at the cafe near the train station. Don't tell him. No name, no profile picture. Just an old number from an out-of-state area code. I reread it until the screen dimmed. The house was so quiet that I could hear the refrigerator hum. Somewhere outside, a dog barked once, sharply, and stopped. I put the phone face down and tried to breathe. Sleep was impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that little gravestone and Daniel's face in the rain. When dawn finally scraped pale light across the windows, I was still sitting at the kitchen table with cold coffee in my hand. At 10:30, I grabbed my coat and left. I told no one where I was going. The cafe sat beside the tracks, a place we'd passed hundreds of times but never entered. It smelled of roasted beans and wet pavement. I chose a corner seat facing the door. My pulse felt like another heartbeat behind my ribs. At exactly 11, the bell over the door rang. A woman walked in, mid-30s, short dark hair, a raincoat 2 sizes too big. She looked around, spotted me, and came over. "Maya?" she asked. "Yes." She slid into the seat opposite me. Her eyes were tired but sharp. "I'm Rachel." The name hit me like a slap. "Her mother?" She nodded. "Yes." I didn't know what to say. The silence between us filled with all the words Daniel had never spoken. She folded her hands. "I wasn't sure you'd come." Most people wouldn't. "I almost didn't," I admitted. "Why contact me now?" "Because you deserve the truth," she said quietly. "Daniel's not telling you everything." My throat tightened. "About Clara?" "About what happened the night she died." I gripped the edge of the table. "He told me she was sick." "A heart defect." Rachel gave a small, humorless laugh. "That's partly true." She reached into her bag and placed a worn envelope on the table. "These are copies of the hospital records. Look at the timestamp." I unfolded the first sheet. The numbers blurred for a moment before I focused. Time of admission, 1:18 a.m. Time of death, 3:46 a.m. "Daniel told me he was there," I said. "He said he held her hand." Rachel's gaze didn't waver. "He wasn't." The air left my lungs. "What?" "He didn't arrive until morning. He said his phone had died, that he didn't get my calls." I believed him then. But a nurse later told me he'd been seen in the parking lot around midnight, drunk, screaming that he couldn't go inside. They found him asleep in his car at sunrise. She took a trembling breath. "I forgave him at first. Grief does strange things. But when he disappeared after the funeral and never came back, I knew the truth. He wasn't running from me. He was running from himself." I sat back, the paper trembling in my hand. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you need to understand the man you married," she said. "He's not cruel. He's just a coward when it comes to pain. He'll bury it until it rots, and then everyone around him pays the price." Her voice softened. "When he got that tattoo, he called me. Said he wanted to make peace. I told him to tell you everything. He said he would. But when I didn't hear from him again, I knew he'd changed his mind." She pushed a small flash drive across the table. "There's something else. Old voicemails, photos. You can listen if you want proof. I didn't touch it." "Why now, Rachel?" "Because you looked like me once," she said. Sitting across from him, believing his silences were kindness. A train thundered past outside, shaking the window panes. When it faded, she stood. "He'll come looking for you tonight. When he does, ask him what happened at 1:18 a.m. He'll know what it means." She pulled up her hood and was gone before I could find words. Back home, I placed the flash drive on the desk and stared at it for a long time. I didn't want to hear those voicemails. I wanted to pretend the morning hadn't happened. At dusk, Daniel's car pulled into the driveway. He looked exhausted, clothes rumpled, eyes rimmed red. "We need to talk," he said. "So do I." He froze when he saw the papers on the table. "Where did you get those?" Rachel gave them to me. His face drained of color. You met her? She found me. He sank into a chair. What did she tell you? Enough, I said. She said you weren't there when Clara died. That you lied to both of us. He rubbed his temples. I wasn't ready to tell you that part. Then tell me now. He looked up, eyes glassy. I was supposed to pick her up from Rachel's that night. She'd had another coughing spell, and Rachel said she was wheezing. I stopped for a drink on the way. Just one, I told myself. Then another. By the time I reached the house, the ambulance was already there. I followed them to the hospital, but couldn't make myself walk through those doors. I sat outside and watched the lights until they went out. By the time I found courage to go in, she was gone. He covered his face. I've never forgiven myself. The confession should have felt like closure, but it didn't. Something still itched beneath the surface. Rachel said you disappeared after the funeral. I did, he whispered. I sold the house, moved states, changed numbers. I thought if I erased the trail, the pain would stop following me. And when you met me, he met my eyes. You made me feel like I could start over. But the guilt never left. The tattoo was supposed to set it free. I wanted to believe him. I almost did. Until my phone buzzed again. Another message. Same number as before. Did he tell you about the second child? My heart stopped. I looked at him. He saw my face and frowned. What's wrong? I showed him the screen. He stared at it, then at me. Color drained from his face entirely. Who sent that? You tell me. He didn't answer. Instead, he stood abruptly, pacing the room. She shouldn't. No one should know about that. What second child, Daniel? He turned, eyes wide, desperate. Maya, it's not what you think. Then what is it? He backed toward the door. I need to make a call. Don't you dare walk out again, I said, voice rising. He stopped, trembling. Please, just give me an hour. I'll explain everything. No, now. The silence that followed stretched thin as glass. Finally, he whispered, Rachel was pregnant again when I left. I didn't know until years later. My knees went weak. And you never told me? I didn't know if the child survived. She told me the baby was stillborn, but last month when she called about the tattoo, she hinted otherwise. I think... He hesitated, voice shaking. I think Clara's brother is alive. I stared at him. You think? She wouldn't say more. She just asked if I wanted to meet him. I said no. I couldn't go through that again. I sank into a chair, every breath sharp. So you might have a living son you've never met. He nodded miserably. And whoever's texting you knows about him. The phone buzzed again. He's not the man you think he is. Ask him where the money went. Daniel lunged for the phone, but I pulled it back. Money? I said. What money? He shook his head. Maya, don't answer them. Answer me. He opened his mouth, closed it again. It's complicated. Make it simple. His voice dropped to a whisper. Insurance. What? When Clara died, there was a policy. I put the money in an account for Rachel. I swear I never touched it. But a year later, it vanished. She thought I took it. I didn't. Someone else did. Who? He looked at the door as if expecting someone to burst in. I don't know. The lights flickered. A storm outside had rolled in unnoticed. Thunder cracked close enough to rattle the window panes. "Daniel," I said slowly, "you're scaring me." He turned to me, face pale in the flash of lightning. "If that number knows about the money, they're watching us." "Watching us?" Before I could say more, another message appeared. "Check your mailbox." We both froze. Daniel ran to the front door and yanked it open. Rain poured down in sheets. He stepped outside and came back with a small soaked envelope. Inside was a single photograph. Blurry, taken from a distance. It showed Daniel standing at Clara's grave earlier that day, and me behind him, half hidden by the trees. Scrawled across the bottom in red ink were 6 words. "Some secrets shouldn't stay buried forever." He stared at it, then at me. "Maya, I swear I didn't..." But I barely heard him. My phone buzzed one last time. "You opened the box, didn't you?" I looked up sharply. "What box?" I whispered. Daniel's face went white. "Maya," he said hoarsely, "whatever you do, don't go into the attic." For a long second I thought he was joking, but the look in his eyes was nothing close to humor. Pure, raw fear. "The attic?" I repeated. "Why?" He swallowed hard. "There's something up there I was supposed to get rid of years ago." I crossed my arms. "You've hidden plenty already. You might as well finish the list." He shook his head. "Please, Maya. Just trust me this once. If whoever's sending those messages knows about it, it means they've been in our house." My skin prickled. "You're not making sense." Before he could answer, thunder rolled again, louder this time, shaking the frame of the windows. The power flickered. One light died, then another, until only the hallway lamp remained, humming like a nervous heartbeat. Daniel grabbed a flashlight from the kitchen drawer and moved toward the staircase. "Stay here." "The hell I will," I said, following. Each step groaned as we climbed. The air grew colder, heavier with dust. At the top landing, the pull cord for the attic door hung like a question. He reached for it but stopped halfway, hand trembling. "If it's been opened," he murmured. "What is it, Daniel?" He looked back at me. "A box. Wooden. Locked. It belonged to Rachel." The cord creaked as he pulled. The folding stairs dropped down with a metallic sigh. The smell that drifted out was old wood, paper, and something faintly sweet, like forgotten flowers. He climbed first. I followed, flashlight beam slicing through darkness. Boxes lined the narrow space, holiday decorations, old clothes, the usual clutter. In the far corner sat a small trunk, roughly the size of a carry-on suitcase. A child's sticker, faded and peeling, clung to one side, a yellow sun with crooked rays. "That's it," Daniel whispered. I knelt beside it. "Why does it have your daughter's drawing on it?" "She liked putting stickers on everything." Rachel used to keep her toys in here. The padlock was still attached but rusted. Someone had taped a note to the lid. I wiped the dust away until the letters appeared. "Do not open, unless you can face the truth." My stomach turned. "Did you write this?" He shook his head. "No." I aimed the flashlight at the latch. The metal looked newer than the rest of the trunk, as if it had been replaced recently. "Daniel," I said slowly, "when was the last time you were up here?" He hesitated. "A week before my trip." "So right before the tattoo?" He nodded once. "Why?" I came looking for a photo album. I didn't touch the box. We stared at it in silence. Rain drummed steadily on the roof, the sound filling every pause between us. Finally, I said, "If we don't open it, we'll never know what's inside." He stepped back. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly," I snapped. "Secrets are what got us here." Before he could stop me, I yanked at the padlock. It resisted, then snapped under the heel of the flashlight. The lid creaked open. Inside, wrapped in layers of tissue and plastic, were papers, photographs, and a small stuffed rabbit missing one ear. The smell of dust and something metallic hit me. On top lay a notebook, Rachel's handwriting across the first page. "For whoever finds this, I'm tired of being silent." I looked at Daniel. His lips moved, but no sound came. I flipped the page. The first entry was dated 2 months before Clara's death. "Daniel doesn't come home anymore. When he does, he smells like whiskey and fear. He keeps talking about the insurance policy." I told him we didn't need it, that money wouldn't fix what's wrong, but he said it's just in case. I think he knows something I don't. I turned another page. "Clara's been coughing again. The doctors want more tests. Daniel says we can't afford them until the payout clears." "What payout?" I felt the blood drain from my face. "Daniel, what is this?" He shook his head violently. "It's lies." She was losing her mind back then. Another entry, scrawled and shaky. "He left last night. Said he needed air. Came back with blood on his sleeve and a new story about a job in another city. He keeps muttering about starting over, about a clean slate." My hands trembled. "She thought you did something to get that insurance money." "That's not true," he said quickly. "Maya, I swear to you." But his voice cracked on the last word. I reached deeper into the box. Beneath the notebook was a small envelope sealed with yellowing tape. Across the front, "Hospital. Do not destroy." Inside were photographs, grainy black and white scans, a baby's silhouette, tiny hands visible. The date printed in the corner was 3 months after Clara's death. Rachel's name was on the form. The father's section was blank. I looked up. She was pregnant when Clara died. Daniel closed his eyes. "I didn't know." "Not until later." "And you never asked who the father was?" His silence answered for him. Outside, thunder cracked again, closer now. Then we heard it, a soft creak from below. Footsteps. We froze. Daniel killed the flashlight. The attic plunged into darkness. Another step, slow and deliberate, then another. The sound of the front door closing. He leaned close, whispering, "Someone's inside." The boards beneath them groaned again, slow and deliberate. Maya pressed her back against a beam. Daniel raised a finger to his lips. The flashlight trembled in his hand. A faint cone of light slipped through the floorboards. Someone below had turned on a phone. Footsteps crossed the hallway, pausing at the bottom of the attic ladder. They heard the creak of the cord being touched. Daniel leaned close, whispering, "If they pull it down, run to the far corner. There's another hatch to the roof." But the cord dropped back, untouched. The steps moved away toward the kitchen. For a moment, only the rain spoke. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. "Who would break into our house during a storm?" Daniel's whisper rasped. "Someone who wants the box." He reached for the flashlight again, switching it on low. They crept to the opening, peering through the gap in the floor. A figure in a hooded jacket stood by the table, soaked, one hand gloved, the other bare, and a pail. The intruder placed something on the table, a folded envelope, and left through the back door as quietly as they'd come. 10 seconds, then 20. The silence felt heavier than the thunder. Daniel climbed down first, checking each room. Maya followed. On the table lay the envelope. Her name was written across it in thick marker, the letters bleeding from the rain. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "You both keep looking in the wrong place." "She wasn't buried where you think?" The room tilted. Daniel stared at the words, his jaw tightening. "That's impossible." Maya whispered, "What does it mean, not buried where you think?" He didn't answer. "If you've listened this far, thank you for staying with me through this story. What do you think Daniel and Maya will find when the truth is finally uncovered? Don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss part 2 of this story. Share your thoughts or your own stories in the comments. I'd love to hear them.